Hey guys and gals, what is going on? John Milton here and I'm back for another video for y'all today. Now I think this is actually what was actually supposed to come today, but it's been a few days since I've done one of these, and that is an album review for you guys. Now the last one I did was L7's Bricks Are Heavy, and I said how much I love the grunge aspect, but I'm also emphasising the need for me to be a bit more diverse in terms of you know, my, like, which CDs I decided to review. Like, what my original intentions were to make a sort of like grunge series, but I thought, you know, this will get boring after a while if I just keep, you know, reviewing music from the same genre all the time. So, you know, today's a bit of a change in that I'm going to be reviewing an album from one of my all-time favourite bands. Well, actually, they are actually my favourite band, guys and gals, and that is Metallica with their 7th studio album, which is known as ReLoad. Now, ReLoad was released, guys and gals, in 1997 on Elektra and Vertigo Records, and it was the sequel to 1996's Load release, because originally Load and ReLoad were intended to be like, you know, a double album, but due to like time constraints on the CD, like Metallica couldn't like publish like all the songs onto one CD, which meant it had to be like split into two. And you had Load, which was released the year previous in 1996, and then we had ReLoad, the one that I'm going to be talking about today for you guys and gals, in 1997. Now, ReLoad, guys, contains 13 tracks, and it's viewed as like the second part of a departure from like Metallica, like really like moving on from their traditional like thrash sound, which was established by the albums that they released in the 1980s, and they transformed into more sort of like bluesy, sort of like hard rock band with the release of Load's the previous year and ReLoad. Yeah, but you know, it received some negative criticism from some fans that were a bit more traditionalists, like Metallica fans, but I thought it was like really cool for like Metallica to like, you know, like embrace other genres, because not only can you show that you're like musically diverse and it can like expand your palette, and like you're not afraid to like, you know, like step out of the box and you know, try your hand at different genres, but you know, it could also like acquire like the band like a larger fan base. Yeah, and there's a quote like from Jason Newsted, their bass player at the time, which said, we sold out, but we sold out every single night, which means essentially like, you know, despite changing their sound, that, you know, Metallica could still, you know, rock the world. I mean, as we all know, like Metallica are considered to be the biggest band, well, the biggest heavy metal band in the entire world. You know, they've sold well over 100 million albums. They're just like, you know, highly revered by like some fans, you know, as being like just absolutely amazing in like everything they do. Well, not everything they do, but you know, the vast majority of their catalogue is like, you know, highly praised by their fan base. So I just load up my notes for you guys and gals. We begin the album with track number 1, which is called Fuel, and this starts off in typical like, you know, like typical Metallica, you know, like badass style, with like, you know, James Hetfield like shouting a line before like the guitar comes in, and it's like, it's highly aggressive guitar, and it's you know, it's only like partially showcases like what is to come on the remainder of the album. And yeah, there's sort of like an awesome like middle bit as well in the song, which you know, the sort of the instruments sort of like break down, you get sort of like a more like melodic sort of like sound. Now, like, it really works because it's an amazing song, guys and gals, and it's certainly you know, a terrific way to open the album. Like, I wouldn't consider it to be like one of my, you know, particularly favourite songs from the album, but it's certainly, you know, a great start, and it's cool because, as I've said, it's like lures the listeners in, and you know, just gives them a small taste, a small dose of what is to come with the remainder of the album. And then moving on to track 2, guys, which is called The Memory Remains. This is one of the biggest songs from this album for Metallica. It's again similar to Fuel in that it starts off with like, you know, the lead singer James Hetfield, like, you know, singing a line, but this time there's like guitar like playing over the top of his like vocals, and it's really cool. Like, it's more of like a groovy sort of song in comparison to Fuel, because Fuel, as I've said, guys, just like, you know, an aggressive, like, you know, jam to kick off the album. And so the Memory Remains sort of showcases like the groovy side to this album, which I think makes it exceptionally good. And we also see a guest appearance on this album from a lady known as what's she called, bless her? Marianne Faithfull, who sings like a refrain like in the middle of the song and towards the end of it too. And obviously interlaced like with Marianne's sort of like lines, guys, it's sort of like, you know, solos from Kirk Hammett. I mean, the solos like, you know, on this album are just like so prevalent. I mean, like, Metallica just like totally make the most of their abilities on their instruments, you know. Like, they just go on and on and on. It just works so well because, you know, it formulates this like huge sound that like Metallica really honed, you know, with their music, and what makes like this record so cool. On Memory Remains, this sort of like showcase like only a small dose, because there's like plenty more to come from this record. And then, guys and gals, we move on to track 3, which is known as Devil's Dance. This is sort of like one of my most favourite songs from this album. It starts off with like an awesome like bass and drums combination. Like, you know, I'm a huge fan of like when the bass and the drums like play together and get like sort of like a groovy rhythm. It's similar to Fuel, the first track on the album, in that it's sort of like got sort of like aggressive edge to it, like, you know, just Metallica being badass as they normally are. So, and it's basically about like temptation, sort of like giving in, you know, like the devil sort of like trying to like pull you onto his side. It's similar like lyrically to the song NIB by Black Sabbath, but it's obviously utilised in a much different aspect, like, you know, in terms of the sound to that song. And it's just amazing, everyone. I mean, that song, you know, on the album is just fantastic. And then we move on to track 4, which is The Unforgiven 2. Wow, I could just talk about this song all day. You know, The Unforgiven 2 is one of the most beautiful, absolutely phenomenal tracks that Metallica have ever produced. It starts off with like the horn, which began the predecessor to that song, which was known as The Unforgiven. And instead of like it being sort of like a soothing rhythm this time, you know, it's just, it comes in with like, you know, the big heavy guitars which have been established on this particular album with the tracks that we've covered so far. And there are remnants of the original Unforgiven song here, because it just has a very soothing section, and it just allows like James's vocals to just like fly and just be, you know, absolutely incredible. Like, it really showcased just how good of a vocalist he is in this song. There's just like a solo in the middle from Kirk Hammett that is just amazing. Like, when I was watching this documentary like about their previous album, the Black Album, it said like whilst Metallica were recording the original Unforgiven, like, you know, Kirk Hammett, the guitarist, was trying his best to come up with like an awesome solo for the song. Like, he tried different things, but the producer, you know, for that album, and who was the same on this record too, Bob Brock, felt it could do much better, you know, and Kirk just got so angry, just like jammed out one of the most amazing solos ever on The Unforgiven, and that was used on the song. It's kind of similar in this song, that there's like a solo which rings like reminiscent of the original Unforgiven. It complements sort of like the heavier sound which the band decided to employ with this particular incarnation of the Unforgiven song. And yeah, it's just basically like about a guy's, is like, it's sort of like the themes on this album are like, you know, really cool, and like sort of stuff that I really love to like, you know, bands to like explore. It's basically about this like broken hearted dude who's like suffered throughout like the course of his entire life, is like searching for like the perfect soulmate and partner to, you know, to like empathise with his problems, and like someone who can relate to and like, you know, like live happy ever after through like all their pain and sorrow and stuff, which I think sort of like, it's like darkly beautiful, if that's even a term. Like, it's kind of it's just very like deep and like very cool, and I think, you know, it just really adds to the song The Unforgiven 2, guys. It's definitely, I'd recommend this song for anyone who's wanting to get into Metallica. You know, this is, you know, just an absolutely phenomenal song by the band. And then, guys, move on to track 5, which is known as Better Than You. And the intro sort of sounds like drum cymbals crashing together. I put on my notes, it sounded like falling frying pans, because it's just like a very steely sound, but obviously not as like, you know, the sound on like Metallica's Saint Anger or anything. And yeah, it comes like complete like more groovy riffs and, you know, rhythms. That's it's definitely the most like groovy song on the album so far, along with Devil's Dance. It's not like, it doesn't stand out as much as say like some of the other songs on the album, but it's really cool. It's basically about, like, as I've mentioned, guys, like the band like had a lot of haters because, you know, they decided to go exploring like a different sound for, like, you know, the album previously, the Black Album, as well as, you know, like Load and Reload. And it's basically like Metallica's response, because they've released Load or Reload, and from some circles in their fans, like, some people hadn't really like enjoyed it as much. But this is basically Metallica's response to that, saying, you know, we'll do what we want, and, you know, nothing's going to stand in our way, which is something that, you know, I really believe in, because, you know, in life, you know, you do what makes you happy, and if other people don't like it, who cares? And then, guys, move on to track 6, which is known as Slither. This is one of my favourite songs from the record. It begins with sort of like a groovy guitar riff, which carries on throughout, and it's more like a song where like Lars Ulrich, the drummer, his drums like really shine through, and as per, you know, most of the other songs on this album, it is like interlaced with solos as well, and there's sort of like a middle section where like the instruments, well, you know, like the bass and the drums and the guitar, sorry, just the bass and the drums, sorry, like take a back seat. Well, actually, it could include James Hetfield's rhythm guitar, because it just, this particular part of the song allows like Kirk Hammett to just like shine and like show his, like, you know, ability as like an amazingly, you know, brilliant guitar player. It's basically like about the Vietnam War, which obviously was a huge part of American history, and it just reflects like the realist themes that Metallica decided to pursue on this particular release. And then we move on to track 7, guys, which is known as Carpe Diem Baby, which is also one of my favourite songs like on the album. Like, it's sort of this like distorted guitar that sort of like fades in forwards, just get this like amazing like rhythm, just like booming out of your speakers. It just like hits you like straight hard in the chest. It's just like, you know, like, baby, this is so damn cool. And yeah, it's more groovy. I think one of the reasons why I like love this record so much, everyone, is because it's just groovy. Like, I'm a big fan, like, in rock, you know, for like a band like utilize like massive like groovy and like melodic material. It just absolutely, you know, makes, you know, the sound just like rock to my ears. And yeah, it's this is a song where like sort of like James Hetfield sort of like experiments with his like vocals a little bit, because on you know, there are parts of this album where it sort of like utilizes a higher tone. It's sort of like it's not really evil. It's sort of like, you know, it's just, I describe it as like badass. You know, I'd use an expletive to describe horse it is, but, you know, I'm so much better than expletives. You know, it's not cool to swear, but, you know, I could you know, just praise this album all day long, especially this song. You know, it, like I said, like James just utilizes like, it's sort of like higher tones. It's just sort of like adds to like the sort of like slithering rhythms, like, you know, that proper like Metallica utilize, you know, on this particular song and on other parts of the album too. It's basically about like, you know, something that I heavily believe in. You know, I can relate to Metallica like in a lot of ways, you know, lyrically, and it's about like seizing the day. Like, as we know, carpe diem means like seize the day. It's basically about like, you know, living for the moment and like, you know, chasing dreams and like just making the most of every day, you know, because we're not going to be around forever, so you may as well, you know, make your legacy, make your dreams while you're here, and then come what may, and you leave with nothing to fear. And then guys, we get to track 8, which is known as Bad Seed. It starts off with like a cough, like someone coughing. It's similar to the song Sweet Leaf by Black Sabbath from their 1971 album Master of Reality. Except, you know, like obviously as I said, like there was another like reference to Black Sabbath song NIB in a previous track, and obviously it's utilised, Metallica utilised it in a different way. Same with this. I mean, you know, like James then like shouts like BAM, and then, you know, like the guitar work just like sets off. You could just imagine like at a Metallica gig, just like all the fireworks going up and all the crowd going wild, and damn, imagine that'd be pretty damn awesome. And then yeah, there's like, as is like come to be the norm on most tracks on this album, like guys and girls, there's sort of like a solo halfway through, like Kirk Hammett's guitar, you know, on this record, you know, really shines through, and it just shows like how like such groovy and like melodic riffs that dude can play. And Bad Seed is basically about like how like in life like people always want, you know, like more. You know, some people are like never satisfied with like what, you know, they've been blessed with in life, and it's like as soon as they reach like the pinnacle, you know, as soon as they've like accumulated every single like material possession or, you know, whatever, right, in their life, you know, it's just like they can't handle it, and they just like, you know, fall like from the perch, and just like, you know, it just doesn't end well for them. And then we move on to track 9, which is known as Where the Wild Things Are. Now this again, everyone, just one of my most favourite songs from the album. It basically starts with sort of like a smooth like guitar riff, but like it almost sounds like, you know, like you're in the jungle, like surrounded by like snakes and pythons, ready to like, you know, grab you around the neck and like strangle you and like cause you to lose, like breathe your last breath and stuff. Well, obviously not to that extreme, but yeah, it basically starts like that, and you get sort of like a quieter sort of like vocal performance from James Hetfield, like at the beginning of the song, and yeah, the sort of like it. Then the guitar hits, and just like another like groovy sort of, you know, riff, which, as I said, are like rather prevalent on this particular release. And there's like an excerpt of this particular song contains like echoed style vocals, which just make the song, you know, just add to the song, like make it amazing. And there's sort of like a solo towards the end of the song, guys. And sorry, my phone's ringing, but you know, I'll get back to them. And yeah, it's the song Where the Wild Things Are, guys, is basically about like, you know, like teenagers when I think like, you know, they can like live in a dream world the whole life, and you know, there comes a time when like they have to face like reality, and you know, like smell the coffee, shall I say, you know, they realise that they have to like work hard in life to like achieve their dreams. And I believe that sort of like lyric matter is explored in another song further on this album, everyone. And then we move on to track 10, which is known as Prince Charming. It like starts with like a standalone like guitar part, which is basically like comprised of like hammer-ons. It just like, it's huge, like basically showing like Metallica can be huge like just by like one guitarist, either like Kirk or James, just like, you know, playing by themselves before like the rest of the band, then just sort of like they follow that riff. So basically it's sort of like the guitar at the beginning is sort of like preparing everyone for like what is to come like later on in the song. And yeah, there's sort of like a bit in the song where there's sort of like a cool like, now it's like it's like a bass and drums like bit before, like in this song it's actually like a bass and guitar combo, but it just works like the same way, you know, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, there's sort of like an experimental like vocal style in the like middle part of the song too, guys and gals, which is as I said, like prevalent on this album, you know, like James Hetfield like experimenting with his vocals and things. And it's basically about like yeah, it's basically about like teenage, like more references to like teenage like themes. It's basically about like except this time it's not about like smelling the coffee and like realising it has to work hard in life. It's basically about like those like young people who have been like, you know, had like a hard time throughout their lives for like particular reasons, and I guess this is sort of like a song they can relate to. And then leading to track 11, Guys and Girls, which is known as Layman's Lyric. This is like, wow, this is one of, you know, the definite highlights on this album. It's more of a ballad in like a key from like Nothing Else Matters from the Black Album, you know, Fade to Black from Ride the Lightning, whatchamacallit, Mama Said from Load. And it's basically, it starts with a smoothing guitar part, everyone, that sort of like continues throughout the song. It allows James to like utilise these like, you know, like really beautiful like vocal melodies. And these continue throughout the song, but the thing is with Metallica, the great thing is that they can like write verse. Sorry about that, guys and gals, my camera seemed to cut off like when I was talking about the last song. So what I'm going to do in this video is like edit it together so you know, like there's not like two parts to this video, so sorry about that. But where was that? I would talk about Layman's Lyric. Like, it's just like a really beautiful song that like the sort of like rhythm like changes like halfway through. We just get like these like amazing lyrics from, you know, James like singing them, and it just really like complements the song. It's, you sort of like get a like sort of like, is it melancholic vibe throughout. It's sort of like, when I researched the subject matter, I realised why this was. It's because it's written about like a guy who's like comprised with suicide note. He doesn't want to be like a burden to anyone. It's kind of heartbreaking. Like, you know, I occasionally get like tears in my eyes when I like think about, you know, like a subject matter of that kind. It's just like, you know, it really tugs at your heartstrings. But it's a very beautiful song, and definitely one that really stands out from this particular release. And then everyone will go on to track 12, which is known as Attitude. This sort of like reflects like the opening like fire and aggression from like Fuel, and that's you know, it sort of like contains an aggressive riff. It's one of the shorter songs on this record, but you know, it kind of like combines like, you know, like Fuel is straight up like aggressive to open the album. So, and then we have The Memory Remains, which sort of like you know, showcase the groovy element to this album, and that is what, you know, happens with Attitude, and it sort of like combines like the aggression from Fuel and the groovy like melodic nature of The Memory Remains, and puts them together to make a really awesome song. It's basically about like killing for pleasure, like basically about like serial killers or something. Like, you know, this is actually the song. Like the main riff to the intro to this video actually like contains like the opening riff from the song, and you'll see how I'll be utilising this song in an introduction video for one of my future series, as Guys and Gals. So sit tight and you shall see. And then finally moving on to track 13, which is known as Fixer. It's basically Fixer with 3 X's in it, and this is the longest song on the album. It's sort of like rings reminiscent from the final song on Metallica's previous album, which was called The Outlaw Torn from Load, and it's basically like the guitar like fades in a similar way to The Outlaw Torn, but the amazing thing about this song is that it's written in a similar vein to The Outlaw Torn, but you know, there are like, you know, standout differences, but the thing is it doesn't like impact it all. I mean, you know, it's just an absolutely fantastic way to close a phenomenal album. Like, you know, sort of like this, like, I don't know how to describe it, like, it's like guitar part. It's sort of like, you know, like, maybe it's just part of the special effects which Kirk utilised on this, on, you know, Load and Reload. And it just sounds amazing. And it's kind of like, yeah, you get sort of like, it's very diverse in that, you know, there are like towards the end sort of like, it sounds like James, like, you know, he's like encased in like a pool of water, he's like singing like whilst, you know, encased in that. It's an absolutely phenomenal way to end the album, and it's, you know, as something like most, you know, it's not necessarily groovy, but it's, you know, the guitarist you can just like, you know, bob your head to, or in my case, headbang your neck off to, and yeah, there's just some like amazing vocal lines, like, you know, for instance, like mirror mirror like on thy wall, and you know, whatever follows on from that. It's just the way that James Hetfield sings lines like that are just like, you know, makes the song an absolute classic. Like, you know, as I said, this is one of the best albums that I've ever heard in my life, and it's I give it a straight 10 out of 10, guys. Like I give, you know, L7's Pretend We're Dead. You know, it's absolutely phenomenal. And the lineup for Metallica at this time consisted of James Hetfield, who played who did the lead vocals, played rhythm guitar, and also did a lead guitar part on the song Carpe Diem Baby. And we had Kirk Hammett, who played lead and rhythm guitar, and we had Jason Newsted, who had been hired in 1988. Who been hired after the death of Cliff Burton. I think this was 1987 because they did the $5.98 Garage Days EP or something. And yeah, it's no longer known as Jason Newkid, like, you know, he's established himself in Metallica's lineup. You know, I've heard people, like, you know, they have their opinions on Jason Newsted, you know, as not being like as good as Cliff Burton. You know, I mean, how could anyone be as good as Cliff Burton? Cliff Burton was one of the most amazing bass players, you know, throughout history. It was just absolutely phenomenal. What happened to him was just so tragic in like every way. And as I said, everyone, this album was produced by Bob Rock, who Metallica had enlisted for their previous album, the Black Album, in 6 years previously, in 1991. Everyone wants to see the artwork. I can remember last time I didn't like show the back cover, so you know, there's the artworks I've shown. We see like the cover's actually unique in that it's got like a combination of like urine and blood, like, you know, because on Load and Reload, Metallica sort of like you know, did some like experiment with like their artwork. Like on Load, it's sort of like blood and semen, and on Reload, it's urine and blood. And then we see the back cover, which shows the band, like, you know, just like having a good time, like, you know, it's like shadows, like lost in wilderness or stuff. And then we open up the album, we see the disc, which is sort of like grey, and then we see like James Hetfield like playing the guitar. Like on the disc too, guys, see like the track listing as well. And if we take the disc out, we'd see like the logo which Metallica used at that time. It was sort of like it's like those things that like ninjas throw, like discs or whatever it is. And then and my album just fell to pieces. Yeah, this particular copy of my album tends to fall to pieces every time I open it. So, and we open the artwork, but guys, see like the cover again. We open it up, and it's basically like shots of like the band playing live. Yeah, it's just, it continues throughout the album. Like, you know, it contains like lyrics. For instance, on this page you got a song like Bad Seed and stuff, and that's basically what comprises like the booklet. And yeah, it's really like this album and Load, guys, in particular, just like, you know, my absolute favourites. You know, I can't praise those albums enough. I'll sort it out later. Yeah, my particular copy of ReLoad cost like £15 at the time. I've seen it in HMV for like $5.99 as well as Load. I'm thinking, should I get a new copy, because, you know, that one keeps falling apart. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the CD, it's just like the case keeps breaking every single time like I open it. But yeah, it's just one of those things. So yeah, guys, hope you've enjoyed this review of Metallica's ReLoad album. Now, I was thinking of doing like sometime in the future, sort of like, you know, a Metallica like discography series, you know, like covering like all their studio albums, like reviewing and like giving them my opinions, you know. I think that'd be really cool, because, like, as I said, like Metallica are my favourite band, you know, of all time. You know, those dudes just, you know, they basically like rock my balls off, basically. And yeah, and this album definitely shows why Metallica, you know, are revered in my circle. And I'll link a couple of tracks in the description, everyone, like I did with the L7 Bricks Terror review. And yeah, it'd be really cool if you know, maybe you could give them a listen and, you know, let me know how they go. And hopefully the quality of this video will be good too. So yeah, guys, thanks for tuning into this particular review, and look out for more stuff from me in the future. Till then, stay safe, stay strong, forever.